What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and it's Tuesday, which means it's time to talk through my top must-add waiver wire targets for Week 12 of the fantasy football season. We have about 15 to 20 players to get into for all leagues of all shapes and sizes, all under 50% owned in ESPN leagues. As always, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe. Let's go.
VVS stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen, she gon' let me.
Now, the way I do this show is the first few players we talk about are my priority ads. So here with Quentin Johnston, he's at 50.6% owned in ESPN. I made an exception for him just in case. These first 5 or so players we talk about are my priority ads. It's late in the year. If you got some fab saved up and you want to make a big bid, these are the players to use big fab bids or top of the line waiver wire ads or waiver wire priority with. Now, as always, you can find over on patreon.com/Ron Stewart my fab article where I'm going to post this video and then immediately write my fab article where I go down the top 10 players every position, how much fab I'm bidding on them, and a little bit of notes on how I feel about those players. So if you want some guidance when you're making these fab bids in your leagues, make sure you check that out. Patreon.com/Ron Stewart down below in the description and the comment section down below. But with Quentin Johnston, we're making the priority. He is the wide receiver 40 overall, right? He missed some games, but he's operating at 11.8 points per game. That is better than Marvin Harrison Jr. He is firmly like a back-end wide receiver 3 in points per game, which this year, that's important. Wide receivers are at a premium. Everybody's hurt. All the wide receivers suck. So you're going to see a lot of wide receivers at the top of this list because some people are out here, starting in their wide receiver 2 spot, a Quentin Johnston with running backs through their flex, just kind of the year that it's been. Now with Quentin Johnston, the age-old question has been, is he good? Is he just a busted coverage merchant? And I think it just doesn't matter at this point. Again, 11.8 points per game over his entire season. And in terms of guys that are actually running routes on the Chargers, shout out to fantasy points here, you can see Quentin Johnston is one of 3 players. Will Dissly, Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, all over 20% targets per route run. And Quentin Johnston is out there running routes just as much as anybody, as the primary guy in 2 and 3 wide receiver sets. So he is somebody that definitely needs to be on rosters, especially with this resurgence here for this Chargers offense. As you can see, we have stats from before and after the bye week where they jumped up from EPA per play, that's just offensive efficiency, from 23rd to 12th. Then you had pass rate 31st to 2nd. Points per game for Herbert, 27th to 9th. And then Herbert's also running the ball more, which doesn't really matter for Quentin Johnston. But this passing environment has been much better. He's been producing. And at a certain point, you just have to acknowledge it and kind of take it in with open arms. Quentin Johnston is a person, a player in the 2024 fantasy football season. Next up, we have Elijah Moore, available in 90% of ESPN leagues. At this point in time, Jameis Winston is just the tide that lifts all sails. From Hayden Winks here, Jameis is Jamesing. Fantasy usage this month. Wide receiver 8, Cedric Tillman. Wide receiver 14, Jerry Jeudy. Wide receiver 15, Elijah Moore. Usage is just their volume. So targets, ADA, all of that. Elijah Moore should be the wide receiver 15. And if you look at since week 7, so this is when Deshaun Watson goes down with his Achilles injury. Then Jameis Winston comes in. And in terms of points per game, Tillman has been a top 12 wide receiver. Jeudy has been a top 24 wide receiver. Elijah Moore is the wide receiver 29 in points per game. And Njoku is the tight end 5. He is good for everybody. Elijah Moore is coming off a game where he had 18.6 PPR points, so he needs to be rostered as a fine wide receiver 3 moving forward. Then our next priority bid, we have Christian Watson. He is kind of on a little bit of a hot streak. He's been much more in the mix over the last 3 weeks. This is his usage as it pertains to the Fantasy Life Utilization Report. You can see over the last 3 weeks, he's at 70% of the routes. He's firmly ahead of Wicks. He's right there neck and neck with Jaden Reed, where I think Jaden Reed is getting out there in 3 wide receiver sets, and then Christian Watson are rotating on those 12 and 13, 14 heavy personnel type of sets. And the amount of heavy sets that they're going to run is based on if they're winning the game or losing the game. So something to think about, where Jaden Reed is worse in wins and Watson will be worse in losses. So they win this week against the Bears. Christian Watson had an amazing game. He had 19 PPR points on the day, despite, I believe, he didn't catch a single touchdown either. So he just had a ton of yards. He's been out here the last 3 weeks where you can see across the board, best targets per out run, best target percentage, best ADOT, best air yard share, best end zone target share, 11.2 PPR points, tied right there with Jaden Reed. So he's somebody that you can definitely flex as like a boom bust option moving forward. I'm trying to get like the exact game log here from Christian Watson. He put up 4 catches, 150 yards, and that'll give you 19 PPR points. Before that, he's coming off 7 targets, which was a season high. Before that, 6 targets, which was also a season high before that. So he's getting much more involved in the offense down the stretch here. Christian Watson could be a fun name to look out for as these fantasy playoffs get going here in a few weeks. Then we are turning over to the RB section. So these aren't priority ads. These are just guys that I would be bidding, 5% or less. I will say with the priority guides before, those guys are probably like 5% to like 15%. These guys are all 5% or less. In a perfect world, after the waivers roll, you pick these guys up off of waivers afterwards. But we have pretty much all of the Raiders running backs right now. We have Amir Abdullah, we have Zamir White, we have Dylan Laube. And what this stems from is just the amount of injuries that have happened to this backfield this past week. Where, if we look at this tweet over from Jeff Mueller, physical therapist, you can see Alexander Mattison, he had an ankle injury, was unable to return, risk of multi-week, and then Zamir White, quad, a likely re-injury from his week 9 quad strain. If so, could be multi-week as well. That gives Amir Abdullah and Dylan Laube the next man up. Now, Zamir White might not be hurt. He could play. So Zamir White's a fine ad, but then deeper than that, Amir Abdullah is interesting, but he is just pigeonholed as just purely the receiving back, and that between the tackles work is going to go to Dylan Laube. He was used in an all-purpose role in preseason. They like him as like kind of a do-it-all kind of back. So I think that if Zamir White can't go, if Madison can't go, we'll see Dylan Laube lead this backfield in touches, which could be a fun development. He was a fun college player. He's a rookie out of, I want to say, New Hampshire. And he's just kind of a like Chase Edmonds, trying to think, Chase Edmonds, Austin Eckler type guy out of school. And, sometimes that'll get it done. I mean, Chase Brown also fits in that family as well. Now, after that, we have Roschon Johnson, who I debated putting in our priority ads. You can definitely make a case to put him in there, but we saw a huge role shift this past weekend as Shane Waldron was out as OC. I want to say that they brought in, it was like what, Thomas Brown is his name? New Bears OC? Yeah, Thomas Brown. And we can see that according to Fantasy Life's utilization report, Swift goes from 68% of the snaps to 54%, and you see Roschon Johnson go from 32% to 44%. He runs more routes, gets more rush attempts. He is the guy in short yardage situations. He is the guy inside the 5. He is the guy in 3rd down and 2-minute drill. So he's getting all the valuable stuff. Passing downs, goal line work, all going to Roschon Johnson. He is somebody that you can definitely start as a desperation RB2 moving forward, which is more like, an RB3 that you don't want to have in your flex spot. After that similar situation, we have Cam Akers, where he also scored a touchdown this week and was kind of startable. But Aaron Jones has been dealing with like a rib injury. And if we look here since week 8, right, he goes 92% of the snaps, then 76%. And then the last 2 weeks, he's been at about 55%. So Cam Akers keeps climbing, keeps getting more usage, gets a touchdown in this game. But he's getting about, a third of the snaps, a third of the rush attempts. He's getting some targets. He's getting some work in short yardage, but he's just kind of mixing in, and he lucked into a touchdown. He's probably more of a handcuff than somebody you can start as a standalone running back, but he's definitely somebody that should not be on waivers moving forward. Then we have another similar sort of situation of a split backfield. We have Jerome Ford. He is getting healthy as the Browns, second fiddle running back here, but he is very much the satellite back, where Nick Chubb was at about 30% of the snaps. He'll take about 60% of the rush attempts, but Jerome Ford is running the routes, getting the targets out there in long down and distance and 2-minute drill situations, and it's kind of a PPR scam type running back. Now, Jameis, his prerogative is not chucking it down into the flat for the running back, but you can definitely get some games where he gives you like 6 catches, 30 yards, and 3 carries and like a touchdown. That's definitely in his range of outcomes. And if Nick Chubb was to go down, Jerome Ford would probably be working in all phases as like a bell cow back. So he has some, he has some standalone upside. He has some handcuff upside. He had 9 opportunities to Nick Chubb's 11. After that, you have Jalen Wright at running back. He's available everywhere. And he just very quietly has passed Raheem Mostert on the depth chart. You look here. This is from PFF. Nathan Yonke does an article where he breaks down all the games, and you can see here the running back usage, where Devon Achane's a 2-minute drill guy. He's splitting third down snaps with Raheem Mostert. But if you go to all plays, Jalen Wright almost had double the amount of snaps as Raheem Mostert. He is getting more touches than him. He is out-snapping him the past 2 weeks. And Raheem Mostert also had an injury in this game where he injured his hip. Seems like he should be good to go moving forward, but Raheem Mostert is an old running back. It wouldn't be shocking for him to break down, and Jalen Wright could have a standalone role, or it could be the direct handcuff to one of the best fantasy running backs moving forward in Devon Achane. Then we have Gus Edwards. Nothing to really touch on. Sadly, the goal line carries went to Hassan Haskins instead of Gus Edwards. He's still kind of working back from that injury, but at the very worst, he is J.K. Dobbins' handcuff, and at the very best, he works his way into an even split in terms of rush attempts with J.K. Dobbins and gives you some standalone fantasy value. Then our last running back is Trey Benson. He's coming off of the bye week here. James Conner's as good as ever, so this is what makes this one tough. But Trey Benson, over his last couple of games, he had 10.7 PPR points last week versus the Jets, 10 carries, 62 yards, 2 catches, 25 yards, so very efficient. And then the game before that, he scored a meaningless touchdown versus Chicago for 12.5 PPR points. So weeks 1 through 8, he had never had a game over 5 PPR points. The last 2 weeks before the bye, he had 2 games over 10 PPR points. So he's kind of trending up here. You need an injury, but he does seem to have some juice where if things go wrong for James Conner, Benson could be a league winner down the stretch. Now, we have our wide receiver section here, where, again, I'm not putting big bids on these guys, but I don't mind them. And they're all just rookie receivers, outside of, your Quentin Johnston and everything. If I'm going to grab a receiver for no reason and one that's not really going to start for me, just give me rookie upside. You see Ricky Pearsall had a bad game, just 2 targets, made nothing of those 2 targets, but he is still out there running routes for the 49ers, is a rookie. We've seen him have some good games in the past. Still somebody that I am stashing. I think, maybe I got a little bit too big for my britches here, saying to start him last week. That is my bad on the starts and stats video, but happens. We'll see moving forward what happens for Ricky Pearsall. It's been the Juwan Jennings show, but Ricky Pearsall is still the wide receiver 3 there and could definitely mix in all phases. And, of course, the reason we like rookie wide receivers, to the right is the rookie receiver report, and then to the left, this is an article I always refer back to from Jack Miller. Rookie receivers get better as the year goes on. Now, after that, we'll talk about the 2. All the receivers are just rookie stashes at this point. Again, I don't know. I don't know the utility of, Rashad Bateman on your bench or, Marquez Valdes-Scantling heading into a bye here. Of course, you definitely can. But I'd rather stash the rookies. You have Jalen Coker and Xavier Legette. Coker up top there with a 78 PFF grade, somebody that is, smack dab right underneath Marvin Harrison Jr., ran 93% of the routes before this bye, had 8 targets as well. And Carolina seems to be not terrible. Xavier Legette scores a lot of touchdowns, not as good as in terms of per route, but he is scoring a lot of fantasy points considering his situation. I don't know. If Bryce Young is truly turning a corner, then one of these guys could be a league winner down the stretch. And then somebody that's a rookie that everyone wants to think isn't a rookie, myself included, is Devon Vele. Yes, is he 25 and not really a rookie? Sure. But he had 10-plus PPR points this past week, 10-plus PPR points the week before that. And he has a 74.6 PFF grade, 18.3% targets per out run, 1.66 yards per out run, 8.3% first downs per out run. Those are all very fine, very good numbers as somebody that can definitely work his way into being a flex option moving forward, especially attached to Bo Nix, who has been really, really good. Then we'll move on to our tight end options here. If he wasn't going on to his bye or into his bye, I would have Taysom as my priority start or my priority bid. You could definitely make the case that he should be a priority bid, but I do just have some reservations of coming back from the bye. You have to grab him, wait a week, so then you're rostering 2 tight ends. I'm not going to go crazy about Taysom Hill, but he is a tight end 3 in points per game, and he could be a league winner down the stretch. So if you want to put a massive bid on him, you absolutely can. Just understand he's not playing for another week, and then when he comes back, who knows what the split is going to look like. I should definitely be on top of when Jamal Williams and Kendre Miller are set to return. I don't know if I have that in front of me, though. Will Jamal Williams play in Week 11? Of course, Week 11 just passed. So I don't know, maybe Jamal Williams could come back and that would muddy things for Taysom Hill. But I'm also kind of just bought into the fact that they've been winning games with Taysom Hill in the mix, and maybe they just keep rolling with that. After that, you have Jonnu Smith. He is now the tight end 9. I will say, honestly, all these tight ends are priority bids. If you just don't have a good tight end you can rely on, then you can definitely drop the hammer on some of these guys. Jonnu Smith is the tight end 9 in points per game, and that's including games without Tua. Then we can also talk about Will Dissly, who is another great tight end ad here. Since the bye week, And if you want to go to week 7, where he's finally been at like 75% of the routes, anything over 60% is going to do it for a streamer. He's been tight end 11 in points per game since week 7. And we already showed earlier with all the Justin Herbert stats, they've been passing the ball more, and Will Dissly has been a big benefactor of that. Now, moving on to our quarterbacks here. We first have Richardson. Now, Richardson is only available in 55% of leagues out there. But if he is out there, he definitely is a good stash. This past week, he had 28.1 PPR points, the most of his year. This could be him turning a corner. And he had 10 carries, 32 yards, 2 touchdowns. You'd like the yards to be more, but it's whatever. The Jets were actually, for whatever reason, very good against the run that day. But 10 carries is huge, especially because he had 0 scrambles. So those are 10 designed rush attempts. 2 of those touchdowns, again, coming in the red zone. So we're getting designed rushes in the end zone, and that is huge, huge upside for a fantasy quarterback, where if he is going to get rushing touchdowns inside the end zone, if they're going to let him throw the ball and have 200-plus passing yards and encourage him to run the ball, Richardson could be down the stretch like a legit league winner at quarterback. Then our last player we'll talk about is Drake May. If you're not as fortunate enough that you can get a Richardson or you could get a Tua, or maybe even a Stafford's a decent streamer this week, I like Drake May. He's still available in like 80% of leagues out there. He's only gone under 17 points once in his 5 games that he's started and finished. He's not. It's not a smash spot versus Miami this week, but he's just had a nice rushing floor, and he embraces enough chaos, kind of like a Jameis, where he might throw a pick, but he might also throw 2 passing touchdowns as well. And he's somebody moving forward that if my quarterback situation isn't great in fantasy football, that I want running things. Now, that is going to do it for us today. As always, if you want the link to the Fab article, that'll be down below in the description and the comment section down below, so you can go on there, see who I have as my biggest Fab bids in terms of recommendations as well. You can find that patreon.com/Ron Stewart down below. If not, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm